the logic, of course, with AML CTF is to prevent businesses, which are referred to as reporting entities under the legislation, being exploited or facilitating financial crime, terrorism financing, and more recently, as of the enactment of Tranche 2, proliferation financing.
Yes.
So, yeah, and excuse me, I'll talk a bit more about what those things are
Yep.
to the extent that I can.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a civil compliance regime, the AML CTF Act, concerned with the prevention of facilitating those species of criminal activity, financial crime, terrorism financing, and proliferation financing.
All right. So, just so that all comes into play, you mentioned on 1 July 2026. So, why is it so significant for what's taking place? I think you just mentioned a few things, but why is it so significant?
Look, it's significant for we professionals, accountants and lawyers, and I'll just refer to accountants and lawyers. I'm not sure there's any other um, newly regulated entities attending this, but if there are, I apologise. I'll just refer to lawyers and accountants for convenience.
Yep.
Um, we haven't seen anything like this, and unlike financial institutions who have always been regulated by what I'll just call financial regulators. Um, we as professionals, we are already regulated by our professional associations.
Yep.
And now we're going to have this concurrent regulation by an emanation of the Commonwealth, um, a bunch of bureaucrats, and I'm not necessarily meaning that as a criticism, AUSTRAC. So it's quite a big shift, I think, for us professionals. And another way, conceivably we could have regulated financial crime risk, I think, is by or via our professional associations, so law societies or CPA or whatever.
Yep.
I think we could have conceivably done it that way. We haven't. We have our general professional regulators, supervisors, professional associations, whatever we want to call them, and we're going to be co-regulated by AUSTRAC. And that's significant. It's significant for many reasons. One is, although this regime is a civil regime, it's closely related with criminal regimes, and those are the regimes in relation to financial crime, money laundering. So the AML CTF regime is designed to prevent, facilitation of these financial crimes, but the financial crimes themselves, very, very serious. If we look at fraud offences, they're sort of 10 years jail, money laundering offences up to 20 years jail. That's the criminal exposure.
Yep.
Back to the AML CTF Act, we have this extraordinary civil exposure. Now, some of you may have seen pecuniary penalties imposed against some of the big banks, and we're looking at between sort of 700 million and $1 billion. The way the AML CTF Act works is it imposes civil penalties if its provisions aren't complied with. In these extraordinary maximum amounts of, in the case of a company, it's up to $33 million per breach. And in the case of individuals, up to $6 million per breach. But what's so extraordinary is a breach can occur as a one-off. So if a reporting entity has an obligation to lodge a suspicious matter report, which we might talk a bit more about later, if they have that obligation and they don't, okay, well that's a penalty. But if they do something in relation to the provision of designated services, which are the regulated services under the AML CTF Act, every day that they don't comply with the act for some of these civil penalties, it's a separate kind of offence. It's a separate civil penalty. So whilst a single breach carries a maximum penalty of $33 million for companies and 6.6 million for individuals, an ongoing breach is just going to be immeasurable in
Yeah.
terms of the maximum penalty. Like you can't, I mean, maybe, I'm a lawyer, not an accountant. You know, I can read, I can't necessarily count. You guys might be able to work it out, but it would be very hard in some cases with an ongoing breach, especially if there's more than one breach, to work out how much the possible exposure is. But some extraordinary penalties, and
Mm.
yeah, that's another reason why this is a big change for us professionals. So
100%.
yeah, we've still got all the professional conduct exposure, which we would have anyway, and then we've got these separate civil penalties that may apply
Yep.
uh,
Yep.
if we're not compliant.